Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now...
Hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Gettin Sketchy Live, the greatest live broadcast in all of YouTube. I'm glad that you're joining us here for this episode tonight, because this episode is our Season 14 finale, where we go back and look at all the artworks we created from the season. We give them a quick critique and a quick little look over, and we get to pick our favorites, and you get to do the same thing. So if you're watching the live version or even the recorded version, if you're watching the recorded version, of course, you'll need to put which one was your favorite in the comments below this video. But if you're watching the live version, you're going to be able to vote tonight and pick your favorite. Also, I decided that we would do something a little bit differently this season. We don't really sell the artworks that we create, but this season we are going to do that. And we're going to give the proceeds away to a local foundation. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute. But first, I want to welcome Ashley, who's joining us as usual. How are you doing this evening, Ashley?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thank you for asking, and I hope you folks are doing well. You may remember that last week Matt said he had a surprise as long as I'm down with it. And I'm down with it because it's for a good cause. So I hope you will consider contributing to the foundation through the purchase of one of our artworks. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our critique while we talk up and tear down our own artwork.
Yes, and that's the surprise I was talking about, that we are going to be selling the artworks that we created. They're going to be sold through an auction. And if you look in the description below this video, there's a link to the auction. The auction has started. It is live now, so all the pieces are available for sale, and the auction will run for a week from today. So the auction will end next Wednesday, which will be, let's see, today is August the 6th, right? So
yeah, that's right.
It will end August the 13th, 2025, and hopefully you guys will bid and win these pieces, and we can send them your way. It's the original artwork. It will be signed. The pieces we're going to look at tonight are not signed, but you will get the signed version matted and sent your way wherever you are in the world. And I'll talk more about the calls in just a minute, but all of you are here because you want to improve your artworks, right? Well, of course, there is no better way to do that than over at thevirtualinstructor.com. You know, we have a lot of fun here on Getting Sketchy, but if you want to get serious about your art, visit thevirtualinstructor.com, and specifically our program over there, which features a ton of drawing and painting courses on a variety of subject matter and media. We also do weekly live lessons. Right now, Ashley is leading us through a series where he's painting 3 horse racers with gouache. It's a fantastic painting already. And all of the live lessons we've ever done, they're all recorded, they're stored in our vault, and they go all the way back to 2012. So that is a lot of content. We also do weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute, similar to what we're going to be doing to our artworks tonight. There's also a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers, which includes all the materials you would need to teach for an entire year. It's really more than what you would be able to accomplish in a year. But all of that is included with the membership program. If you want to learn more about the membership program or start your free trial, there is a link in the description below to do that. Also, if you want to just check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks and get on our mailing list so I can send you a bunch of free art lessons, there's a link in the description below for that as well. So I would encourage you guys to check that out. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Most of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel, which is crazy. Subscribe, click on the notification bell so you're notified when we go live, and also when I post static videos here on YouTube. All right, so the organization that we're going to be working with is pretty near and dear to my heart. It is the Enrichment Center of Winston-Salem, and what they specialize in is helping adults who have intellectual or developmental disabilities. And they do so through the arts. So they create art with them. They have gallery openings. They sell their artwork. They also have dance. They do dance. They put on plays. It's a wonderful thing. It really is a wonderful thing to help these adults in our city. It's a wonderful organization. My wife and I have done a few things with them over the years. The big palette that's behind me in the studio, which you guys see all the time, it was created by folks at the Enrichment Center. We've also purchased several pieces of artwork that those folks have made, and they're in our house. But that palette behind me is very special and very important to me because it does come from the Enrichment Center. So we will be sending all of the proceeds that we get from the sale of the artwork minus the auction fees and also minus the shipping cost to the Enrichment Center in Winston-Salem. If you want to bid on any of the pieces, you can scan the QR code in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. It will take you to the bidding website. And I will have that QR code up on the screen while we're looking at all of the artworks too. So I'll remind you at the end of every piece of artwork. Like I said, the bidding has started. I have not checked it yet, obviously, but it did start at 6 o'clock. And the minimum bid for the artwork is $100. So you might be able to get one of the pieces of artwork for $100 if you are pretty savvy, I guess. I don't really do a lot of bidding and buying stuff through auction, but anyway, that's what we're doing here. So I can't tell you how to win auctions. I don't know the secrets, but
Buddy
anyway.
had a question. She says,
Yeah.
I'm on vacation. Do I need my credit card in order to vote or to bid, I guess?
Not in order to vote. You can vote for your favorite artworks in the
Right here
chat
in the
box.
chat.
Yeah, from anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter if you're on vacation or not.
Sure.
But
Is it? Can you use PayPal or only with a credit card? Do you know, Matt?
I think you can. I think you can pay with PayPal or a credit card.
So maybe there's some options there, buddy.
Yeah, there is a third party who is handling this, so this is all new to me too, but I think it's a great thing, and I'm excited about being able to help out the Enrichment Center. So anyway, let's go ahead and start taking a look at our artworks, and we're going to start with Ashley's piece because Ashley started the season off. So we'll go ahead and switch over there, and then we'll let Ashley tell you about this piece here, and we'll do a little quick critique of it.
All right. So this piece was inspired by the song "Hungry Like the Wolf." Is that right? I think that's the title there. And this was a piece to kick off our season. It's pastel on a black surface. I believe the surface was Canson Mitance paper. And something that I think works in this composition are the diagonals in the composition. So the wolf's body kind of lays across the composition at an angle from the bottom left up to the top right. And then the log that is behind the wolf and the branch that is above the wolf, those are on an opposite diagonal. So they almost make those diagonals, if you were to trace them, they almost kind of make a 90-degree intersection. Something that I think worked also is the contrast. And the contrast was, made possible by a really strong light source. It's not entirely backlit, but it's a little bit backlit. And anytime your subject has some lighting from the back or partially from the back in this case, sometimes you get that beautiful glow, especially in a texture like hair or in this case fur, a beautiful glow that kind of frames out the shape of the subject, and that works here in this wolf. So the color scheme is pretty tight. I mean, the wolf itself is mostly grays. There's some warm and cool passages in there, just to have a little temperature change in an otherwise neutral subject. I think that helps it feel a little more realistic, a little bit more like its environment, and the colors in the environment are reflecting as a temperature in that otherwise neutral color, gray. I would also say that I think the broken color in the background worked out pretty well. I believe I might have laid the pastel down on its side to kind of spread out the surface area and let some of the initial colors that were applied in the background show through in order to create the illusion of texture without having to work too hard to do so. So I was and am still happy with this piece, even after 2 months. Sometimes when some time passes by and you can look back at your artwork, you see things that you would do differently. And I don't think I'd do much different in this one.
All right. Well, it's funny the way that works. Sometimes when I look back on the pieces of artwork, I tend to like them more than I did at the beginning.
And during the process.
Yeah. Some people, it's the opposite of that. They look at their artworks a couple months later and they hate it. They don't know what they were thinking. So I guess I have the better of the two situations.
Yeah, I'd say.
Anyway, I think it's a fantastic piece for a number of reasons. First of all, when you're working with color and you have a time limit, that can be an additional challenge because not only are you having to deal with the values, but you also have to deal with the color and the color relationships and the accuracy of those colors. Pastel, of course, speeds that process up and makes it a little bit easier to get down as much information as you can in a short period of time. But what I really like about this piece the most is the amount of volume that you were able to produce with just a few colors and with just a few layers of colors. And again, you mentioned it, it's the contrast that really is making the difference. We have this area right here that is generally a medium to dark value. And then we have a slightly, quite a bit lighter value here. And then we have a very, very light value. And it's really those three values that are making this really look like there's volume there on the body of the wolf. And another thing that's really nice, which you mentioned, is the fact that the light is kind of reflecting back on the backside of the wolf over here. So we can see the light coming through in these areas. And again, that's adding to the three-dimensional qualities of the wolf within the picture plane. And you already mentioned the broken color in the background, but I just want to reiterate that again. Because not only is the broken color giving us an indication of the colors that are there and the value relationships, but it's also telling us a little bit about the texture, especially down here on these little logs that are on the ground in the foreground. Some of the black of the paper is showing through here, and it's creating the impression that those areas are shadow with little bits of highlight there. And I love the variety of colors, these warm grays, these browns, these lighter oranges that are happening there. Such a broad variety of color in such a short period of time. And I think if I remember correctly, when you were working on this, you added that tree at the end.
Last minute,
right?
That's right.
And that makes such a huge difference in the composition because it creates a flow through the piece. Without that branch up there, if I think I'm remembering correctly, it kind of felt like the image was heavy on the bottom because all of the important information ended right there, but then continued off the bottom of the picture plane, which added a whole lot of weight to the bottom of the picture plane.
That's right. It felt like the bottom edge was the only edge that had been engaged with the composition.
Yeah, but with the addition of this tree branch, that brings weight back up to the top edge of the composition, and again creates that bit of flow there through the piece. So I really like this piece. This is one of my favorites that you did this season. I think you did a great job with all the pieces, but this one really stands out because of the mark making, the amount of volume that you were able to create, or the illusion of volume with the marks on the wolf. The lighting.
How you traced those three values, because they mingle together because of the fur, but they're distinct enough, especially when you squint your eyes, you can really see those. Yeah. And I had a professor a half a lifetime ago that would say over and over, it takes three values to make something look 3D. And sometimes it really only takes those three values, and we can overcomplicate our artwork. So you can reduce what you see, simplify it to just those three distinct values, and mush them together a little bit where they meet, and it feels like all of the values in a value scale are represented.
Okay, so I'll remind you again that this piece is available for purchase. The size of the piece is 7.5 inches by 6 inches. So that gives you an idea.
I think that was my biggest piece of the season.
It was your biggest piece of the season. When you sent me the sizes, I was like, there were a lot of small ones.
Yeah, they were pretty small.
And this one's pretty average for Gettin Sketchy. All right, so we'll move on next to my piece. My drawing was next, and I didn't do a drawing at all. I did a painting here. There's a little bit of watercolor pencil in this, so there is a little bit of drawing in here. And this was Three Little Birds by Bob Marley was the song that I did. And I've decided that the third bird is behind the two in the front.
Oh, okay.
You just can't.
It's a love triangle. We're just seeing it from an angle that we can't pick up on that third bird.
There's a third bird.
There's a third wheel in there.
Right. You just can't see it. Anyway, I think it was last season or the season before was the first time that I did watercolor as part of Gettin Sketchy. And I surprised myself with being able to put down quite a bit of watercolor information in the period of time that we have here. So that's why I decided to do a watercolor painting this season. And I'm glad that I did. I feel like watercolor, similar to pastels, is a medium where if you work quick enough with it, you can get to a point where you can call it finished, or you can continue to work on it. So as long as you get enough variety in the value and variety in the color, then you can accomplish something in a pretty short period of time. I did use some watercolor pencils in this piece. The things that I like about this piece are just the looseness of the watercolor applications. I also like the fact that I left some bits of the white paper showing through. I think that adds a little bit of sparkle, I like to call it, to a watercolor painting. I know that sounds crazy, but I like having little bits of the white of the paper showing through. And I think it just adds a little bit more to the piece. Instead of filling up, specifically in this area, instead of filling all of those areas in with watercolor, it breaks things up. It adds a different value, even though the value is white. And it just makes things a little bit more interesting. I also like the composition here. The only thing that I would change about this piece, obviously if I had more time, I would add more depth to the color, get a little bit more darker values in there, and also some more detail on the breast of the birds and the heads and so on. But I think I got close to the edge here with the kind of vignette look there. That's not a big deal, but you do want to be careful that you don't get you don't get too many things too close to the edge of the picture plane, because it can create some visual pull and weight. I think this amount of space up here is really more like what I would see around the edges. But again, this was done quickly. So, you look at pieces afterwards and then you can analyze those things, and hindsight's 2020, right? So,
That's right.
I do like the loose brushstrokes at the bottom, how that kind of fades out and reminds us that we're looking at a watercolor painting and it's okay for it to be a little bit loose. I also don't mind the fact that I can see some of my graphite lines through this. You can see some of the graphite lines indicating some of the edges of the birds at the top. I like the fact that I got a little bit of hue, a little bit of color into these darker values. In these areas right here, the temptation is to use a black, and even though those eyes look like they're black, there's actually a little bit of color in there. So I was really pleased with this piece, especially since it was watercolor and since we were under such a tight constraint there. And I was able to paint 3 birds in 45 minutes. It really wasn't 45 minutes. If I remember correctly, I went over the time frame.
We don't keep track of that, the extra times.
Right.
45 minutes it is.
Another thing I like is the gradation of color that happens there as those colors mixed a little bit while the surface was still wet. Clearly, I would prefer to have a little bit more definition in the details and some darker values. I really think some darker values would be beneficial in some of these areas to create a little bit more of an illusion of form. So if I could have maybe a slightly darker value here and slightly lighter right here, that's going to create more of a 3-dimensional feel there in the body of the bird. But overall, I was pleased with this piece, and I will do watercolor again in the future for Gettin Sketchy.
Something that I like about it is that the wide variety of greens that you have in there. I mean, from not just light and dark and warm and cool, but the intensity of the greens in the birds are so strong. And in the background, not so much. The passage right above the heads is almost gray. And maybe it is gray, but it feels like a gray-green because it's right up against the only redder area that's in the artwork that pushes it into green. So you really have as dull of a green as you could possibly mix behind the birds up there around the head. And of course, very intense greens in the birds. So a really tight piece in terms of the color harmony there, but you have enough variety that the background works with the birds.
Yeah, I really like the complementary nature of the. I would say it's probably more of a split complementary color scheme because we've got red, we've got blue green, and yellow green. So you could argue that it's split complementary scheme.
Do that.
But then we got some purple feet down here, so that kind of throws everything off. But. All right. Again, I'll remind you that this piece is for sale. QR codes there on your screen, bottom right-hand corner. That will take you to the auction website, and you can bid on any of the pieces that we're looking at. And speaking of the pieces that we're looking at, next was Ashley. And Ashley did a pill bottle.
All right, the pills. So this one was inspired by the Rolling Stones song Mother's Little Helper. And this is a graphite on, I believe, just regular white sulfite drawing paper, so there was no distinct texture to the paper. Any texture that you see is through mark making, and the subject is very stark in terms of their natural values. The bottle was really dark, the pills were really light, so some level of contrast was almost guaranteed, which made my job a little bit easier. I'm happy with the way the reflections of the bottle look. And I did a little bit of erasing to pull those out, and then some cross contour shading over them. So there is a little bit of mark making that you can see in the reflections on the bottle that help us to see that it's round, since the values themselves don't really communicate that because it is a shiny surface. So that seemed to work pretty well, in addition to all the ellipses that are sort of naturally built in. This piece was a little bit about foreshortening, and so the bottle, it reads as mostly a cylinder, but of course it tapers from front towards the back because of the foreshortened angle at which we're looking at the pills. And then just to add a little bit more feeling of depth and space, there's a subtle scale change in the size of the pills from the bottom of the composition and then up into the bottle. You know, we know they're the same size because they're the same shape, and they're the context tells us they're the same size. So that little bit of difference that we can pick up lets us kind of get a feeling that we're close to this subject. Those pills at the bottom of the composition are very close to our eyes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting the way that just a simple subject like this bottle of pills spilling out on the table can be an interesting composition to make a piece of art. It doesn't have to be complex things that you guys want to draw or paint. It can be something very simple and still be impactful. I really like a lot of things you pointed out, especially the foreshortening, the perspective that's happening in here. Foreshortening, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically when things get closer to the viewer and they're like at an angle that's going towards the viewer, then everything gets shorter. So if I was to stretch my arm out completely straight out to the side, which you can't see that, I'm sure, but it would be a certain length to your vantage point. But as I move my arm closer to you, that line that's created there, that length is going to be shorter because my arm is pointing forward to you. And that's how you can remember foreshortening. And, it's the same concept that we see in perspective. But you've done a really good job creating that illusion here, us knowing that the edges of the pill bottle here are the same width as the edges of the pill bottle up here, but you can see the difference in that length because it comes forward. I like what you said about the reflections on the bottle of the peel, the reflections on the pill bottle. One of the things about reflections, especially with highly reflective surfaces, is that you're going to notice that you see light values, shapes of light values right next to shapes of dark values. And you can see that here. You can see that reflected here as we've got a kind of middle to light value right next to a very dark value. And we have that same middle to light value right next to a dark value. And that's really the secret to creating the illusion of a highly reflective surface. And you can see that around the edges of the bottle too, where they have the little ridges that come up. We have a very light value right next to a very dark value. And that's really the secret to creating that illusion. I also like the fact that you pointed out that you use the eraser as a mark-making tool. A lot of times people think that the eraser is just for fixing mistakes. Obviously, it's not. It's a mark-making tool on its own. And you should use your eraser in that manner if you're using a material that is appropriate for that. I also like the lighting in here. It looks like the light source is kind of coming from mostly above, but a little bit over from the right.
Yeah, a little bit.
If you kind of squint, you can kind of see
at the bottom.
Yeah, that there's a little bit of a shape here that is the result of a cast shadow, but then we have these stronger cast shadows right underneath the peels as well. So I think the light source is consistent. Another thing that I think you did really well is these directional strokes coming from the corner. That is adding a bit of an indication that this is sitting on a wooden table that has some texture to it. And you can see that all of these lines are flowing back into the distance following the rules of perspective. So This is what we would expect the wood grain to look like on a table. They're all going to the same vanishing point off in the distance. So that also helps to create the illusion of space within the scene, which correlates with the foreshortening that we see. So all that comes together really nicely, and you have a full range of value, meaning you have all the darks, all the lights, and all the values in between, making this piece successful. So, all right.
Very good.
And I'll remind you that you can own this piece. It can be sent to your house, apartment, tent, wherever. Again, there is the QR code there in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen that will take you to the auction page. All right, I guess next was me there, and I did the dancer here, the Tiny Dancer. My song was Tiny Dancer. And I will tell you that there were a few comments in the...
This one was a little controversial.
This one was controversial, believe it or not, because it was an AI-generated image. And people had problems with that. So I don't know. I am still working on a video that I'm going to put out on my opinions on AI. It might surprise some of you. Some of you it might not surprise, but...
we had to pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
We had the AI introduction this season for a little while.
Right.
For a few weeks, and that was a lot of fun. I'm still inspired by my AI counterpart, and I'm trying to live up to what looks like an awesome life that he apparently is living in a virtual space. And then of course this piece was the reference was generated by AI also. Yeah. But the piece is Matt's entirely. All those marks are his, and he wasn't necessarily trying to reproduce the piece. He was taking parts from it and then reinterpreting it with his human brain, just like we do when we take from a photograph that is not AI, but then we run it through the filter of our brain. So to us, it feels like it's the same.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's actually took the words right out of my mouth. When you're drawing something, whether it's from life or a reference photo, you're still making the marks. You are still interpreting what you're seeing. And artists all the time create composite images using digital programs like Photoshop or whatever, and they put information together to recreate scenes that don't exist in reality. That's normal practice. So when you're working with an AI image, you're just essentially doing the same thing.
Yeah, because you're not locked into everything the AI chose to do, just like we're not locked into everything our camera sees either. So we still have to make choices, and most of the time those choices involve leaving things out. Yeah.
And I see that there's some discussion in the chat box about the lot numbers. That's a lot number means item number. So item, it's just an item.
That's auction speak.
It doesn't mean you're going to get a lot of or 8 of them.
6
if
copies.
It's lot 8.
Right,
Yeah, these aren't copies. These are the original artworks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is charcoal, white and black charcoal, vine charcoal, compressed charcoal on gray drawing paper. I absolutely love working with charcoal. It's one of my favorite mediums because it's so quick. You get a broad range of value. Charcoal is so black and so dark. It's so easy to create a full range of value. And it is easy to manipulate. People give charcoal a hard time because, it's a little messy, a little powdery, but it is easy to manipulate. And that is an advantage. That is not a disadvantage. So anyway, I actually pointed out here that I did 3 figure drawings this season. And I can't believe that, but I did.
I know.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go a whole season and neither one of us do a figure drawing. No. And we might not for 2 more seasons after this. We've had our fill.
Figure drawing is difficult, so I'm not really sure why I chose to do that.
45 minutes, all the more difficult.
Yeah. I really just wanted to punish myself subconsciously, I guess. Anyway, the things that I like about this piece, I like the proportions. I think the proportions are very accurate. I like the range of value, as I already mentioned. I like the loose brush-like marks that you can achieve with charcoal. For some reason, I really like this area right here because you can really see some of those looser marks. Mm-hmm. You can see the dark shadow on the edge of the hand, and then you can see this dark shadow right up here with a little bit of a smudge. I love that. Absolutely love that. It's not for everybody, but I like it. I also like the way this image is lit with the light source coming from the upper right-hand corner. So we can see that the light source is pretty strong because we have those strong highlights on the side of the light source, but also the light comes around and creates a little bit of a highlight on the back side of the subject as well. I really love drawing subjects that are set up that way with the lighting.
It's like the wolf that I drew.
It is.
In a way.
It is.
It's got that little bit of glow that really carves out the figure from the background.
Right.
So incorporate that. Matt and I both used it. So incorporate that little lighting trick into your own artwork, especially if you generate your own images and have some control of the light source.
Some of the things that I would do a little bit differently about this piece is there's still some things to clean up here. I've got some loose smudging here and there. That makes it look a little bit messy. I would like to have a little bit more of a consistent application. I really like the way I applied the charcoal down here, but this area right here feels a little hurried and rushed, and obviously it was, but if this was a little bit darker and a little bit more refined, then it would make the lighter areas, the highlighted areas, feel stronger. So I really want to bring out more darkness right here to create more light on the figure. But that's one thing that you can do on your own. You can put darks next to lights to create edges and to create more of a dramatic effect in your own pieces, because you can see how that really works down there on the edge of the dress. This area is a little rushed down here too with the white charcoal. It's not really consistently applied. I would like to kind of amend that a little bit. And this transition from light to dark could be a little bit smoother. It's pretty much of a hard edge where we've got a dark value right next to a light value. You can really see it here, dark value next to a light value. Where with a leg or an arm, there's going to be a smoother gradation or a more gradual change from light to dark. There might still be high contrast, but there's still going to be a little bit of a transition there. And all those things can be eradicated or fixed by just spending some more time. Another thing that's bothered me about this drawing, and I'm not really sure what I would do to change it actually, is this area right here. It almost feels like her body is kind of bent a strange way in there. Because there is some transparency through the dress she's wearing. And I think it's just really this angle right here, just that little area right there that bothers me. So like I said, I'm not really sure what I would do to change it, but I think it's in competition with the positioning of the legs and how those legs would be in reality underneath the dress. We understand the legs and how they're positioned, but that little bit of a mark there that goes back in and out right there, just...
Yeah, and I guess that was probably created with just because of the folds of the dress.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like I'm looking through it, but because the way it seems to be in line with the leg causes, might be what's causing the confusion.
Yeah, so that's what it is.
You could have just shifted that over just a little bit, one direction or the other, so that the shadow in the dress and the back edge of the leg that she's standing on aren't as in line with one another as maybe they are here or were in the reference.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. If I make this area a little bit darker, maybe slide that over to the right a little bit and bring a little bit more darkness down there. I think that would help.
That happens in art. Sometimes two things that are kind of unrelated happen to line up in a way that our eye puts them together like an implied line.
Yeah. And that hand there is a little wonky too, now that I'm looking at it. All right, but this one can be yours. This one's a large drawing too. Let's see. I got to look it up to see, but it's 10.5 inches by 7 inches.
Oh, yeah.
So
probably your largest this season.
Decent size image. All right, do you have anything else to say about this one, or we want to ready to move on to
Let's
your
go ahead and keep going. Yeah. All right, this one was... Is this one inspired by Rocket Man? I can't remember now.
Yeah, I think it was.
So many space songs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
it was one of our favorite space songs, whichever that one may be for you. So the composition is pretty much complementary. There's orange in there. The central, rocket, the central fuel. I don't know what you call that thing, but it's kind of a burnt orange. And then there's also some oranges in the clouds or in the smoke. The shuttle itself mostly falls along one of the vertical thirds in our composition, and then the edge of the cloud or smoke that is next to it also falls along one of those vertical thirds. So it's pretty much, I did crop this image from the original. That was really the only manipulation I did from the original photograph. That was an open source photograph, and I cropped it specifically to land on those thirds. So that was intentional. And then the smoke cloud and the rocket are sort of in competition with one another for attention. I like how big the smoke is. It speaks to the sheer awesome power of a rocket launching into space. I can hear that deep rumble, and the high contrast of the smoke cloud just feels pretty kind of violent a little bit. Some of those edges are pretty tightly turned or kinked, and to me that kind of communicates action and violence a little bit. And then of course the rocket itself is very smooth. Something that I do appreciate about this piece is the juxtaposition of those types of shapes. The smoke cloud is very organic, and then the rocket is made of basically they're cylinders, but they were drawn as sort of rectangles and triangles. So we have that solid structure to the rocket, and then the I guess the ethereal nature of a cloud. And I like to see those two together. One thing that I did like about this piece, that was a conscious choice, was to not outline the flames that are coming out of our rocket boosters. Everywhere else there was some pen work, mostly broken outlines, but not around what is the brightest part of the piece. And I feel like if I had put a little black accent along those flames, then they wouldn't feel like they glow as much as they do. So leaving the black accents out on that part, or those shapes in the composition, I think contributed to that glow. Let's see. I think that's all I have to say about that one for the most part. I would mention that the background is a little splotchy, and I was not happy with that. And I don't think that was due to the paper. I think that was due to the marker that I had used. That was a technical issue between two different brands of markers that I had. Most everything was colored or rendered with Prismacolor markers, and then I had these really, really strong old markers that had an extremely pungent odor in the studio, and they kind of went down a little bit irregular. I think I might have gone over that surface twice, the background, to try to even it out, and it's not as even as I would have liked. So for me, that was my takeaway. I'm going to stick with Prismacolors from now on, or at least the same brand, and something that's not quite as old. I don't know if it was the marker brand or just the age of the markers. Maybe they became in some ways more concentrated in there over the years, and they just didn't blend or melt together as well as I would have liked them to. I believe I used Posca markers as well for some of those really strong highlights on the rockets at the very end. You did. Mm-hmm. And I love those. I love the Posca markers. We used to do that with gouache, and I still do. But in the 45-minute time frame, sometimes if you happen to have the right color, because you can't get as much variety out of a Posca marker set as you could from a set of gouache, because you can mix any color you want to. So they're a little limiting, but if you happen to have the right color, they can be very effective and lay down right across the top of almost any medium.
And somebody in the chat said, can you still smell it? And the answer is yes, I can still smell it.
What?
Just kidding. Actually, I probably could, because she actually brought the artwork back tonight.
That's what I was wondering. It's in the studio right now, but it's weeks old. It should that smell should be gone.
Yeah.
So if you purchase this artwork, it shouldn't stink up your house at this point. It's like the new car smell. It wears off after a while. So the old marker smell has worn off.
Those markers were the worst smelling markers I have ever smelled. I mean, you and I are sitting, probably 8 feet apart from each other? Probably right. 8 feet. And it took no time for that marker smell to get over to me. And then get my brain. Like I felt my brain dying slowly while I watched the drawing happen.
Yeah, we suffered for that piece of artwork. We lost some brain cells.
That makes sense that the marker is probably to blame for the splotchiness in the background because it is indeed marker paper.
Yeah, I verified that. I did have good quality marker paper, so it wasn't the paper.
Yes, the paper is fine. Anyway, just to kind of echo some of the things that you said, I do like the decision to leave the outlines off of the fiery parts of the engine. I also like the angle of the space shuttle itself. It's kind of at a 3/4 view, which adds an element of depth to it naturally. And then the way that you added these values here is just really nice. And there's a lot of depth in this orange part, whatever it is. There's a lot of depth in the color. It might be hard to see on the screen, but there's some really nice distinct sections of color and value on this that are really making it look three-dimensional. Same for each of these boosters on the side. You got a lot of information down with the markers in a short period of time. And of course, the proportions are accurate. And I really like this composition because if we isolate the space shuttle, we know that's the focal point. And you look at where this is positioned. So if we put an X right in the middle of that, and if we were to divide this into thirds, this composition into thirds, according to the rule of thirds, we can see that the space shuttle lines up on that third over there on the right, and also right in that intersecting point between the top horizontal line and that vertical line. So the positioning of the space shuttle falls right in line with the rule of thirds. We also look at where the smoke billows out to. It billows out right to the edge of that third over there. And this bottom part over here it's real close to that bottom third. So, I mean, that's why this composition is working so well. Not only that, but the billowing smoke also acts as kind of a frame around the subject here. So I really like this composition. It's a really, really strong composition.
Yeah, the smoke almost takes up half the composition, and then the open air takes up almost the other half. There's a type of balance there that I really like. I like to see that in artwork, especially when it's laid out at an angle like this smoke cloud is.
And you mentioned the color combinations, mostly blue and orange. That's a complementary scheme. Those colors are directly across from each other, so that creates high contrast, while also creating harmony and unity in the piece. Great job handling the material, as we mentioned. Smoke is very difficult to create the illusion of with markers and ink.
Yeah,
trust me.
It doesn't. It's not a wispy medium like Pastel or something like that. It's just those are distinct marks, but you still have to have those little transition zones in there to make it feel soft.
I did a drawing of. In college, we had to do a drawing that illustrated a phobia. And I did a plane crashing. So what I had is a frame, there was a border on the image. And the actual plane crashing was done in just pen and ink with line work. And it overlapped the frame. So it went outside of the border. Yeah. And then inside of the border, I ink washed a person panicking on a flight in a seat. Yeah, you've seen it.
You've shown it too.
Yeah. So I had to do all of the smoke of the plane crashing because the smoke was coming out of the engines with line work.
Yeah.
And that took forever.
Yeah, it's tough.
So, I learned right then and there that doing smoke with pen and ink is very difficult. But with the markers here, you pulled it off extremely well. I
did have a blender. Yeah, that helps soften some of those edges and transitions.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend having a blender if you're going to work with these types of organic subject matter. Somebody pointed out that the composition is kind of like a yin-yang. And yeah, that's what I call it, a yin-yang composition, when it's kind of divided in half, but on an angle from corner to corner. So sort of like that. So very cool. I'm glad you picked that out.
Then we'll just draw a nose here, put some eyes on there.
Hey, Picasso.
Hey. All right. I also like the graphic nature of this one too. It's
fine.
very sharp. All right, the next piece was mine, and I did something crazy on this one. So my song for this was Riders on the Storm. So I took a picture of a sailboat that was pictured in a very nice, calm environment, and then just added everything else and made it look like it was stormy. So this is in pastels. It's on pastel matte paper. And the things that I like about this piece, first of all, are the composition. There's a lot of diagonals that are happening in here. We've got this diagonal of the light coming through. The waves are positioned in a diagonal here. I wanted to create that diagonal. Then we've got conflicting or crossing diagonals that are happening here with the boat and the edges of the water, and also the directional strokes in the background. So I really like the energy that was created in this piece, and I like the depth and color that I was able to get in the waves in the water, and also the amount of detail that I was able to portray in the boat with larger, bulkier pastels. I did use some pastel pencils in here too, and this piece was really this piece is the one that I had the most fun with this season because I wasn't tied to a reference. I mean, for the boat I was, but for everything else in the scene, it could come from me as an artist. And I really enjoy that. I don't do that enough. And I would encourage you guys to do the same thing. There's some people out there that all they want to do is draw from imagination, and they hate being confined to working from a reference. But if you really want to get better at drawing and painting and learn to paint or draw representationally, you do have to practice by drawing or painting from observation. So you can't spend your whole life drawing purely from imagination and expect to create realistic images. You do have to practice drawing or painting from real objects. But then you have the freedom to add things using your imagination. And this piece was just a whole lot of fun. I love doing the little wispy white parts on the top of the waves and creating that motion. And then someone suggested that we add a lightning bolt at the end.
It was like a Bob Ross moment.
It was a Bob Ross moment.
A little
Yes.
lightning bolt lives here.
So I said, do you mean just like this? And then just started drawing on there, and it worked out okay. So I really, really, really like this piece. I'm not trying to give away which one is my favorite this season, because I really haven't decided. I'm not sure if it's this piece or not, but I really did enjoy this one. Some of the things that I would change about this piece are, even though I really like the diagonals that are happening here and this really strong diagonal that's happening right there, I would have liked to have broken it up a little bit. It's broken up to a certain degree, but I would like to have had that broken up a little bit more and maybe extended some of these white areas just a little bit more so it doesn't feel so hard of a diagonal edge there, although the diagonals are working. Another thing is the layout of the picture plane. If I were to do this piece over and make it larger, what I would do is move all of this up higher on the picture plane and extend more of the water below. So
I like how high the boat is, and I could see you pushing that because it does make it feel dangerous.
Yes.
A little bit top heavy in a way that makes it feel precarious, and it's a boat being tossed by the waves, so it's the perfect feeling to I guess activate in the viewer.
Yeah, and these people on this boat are doomed. I'm telling you, there's no way they're surviving.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't know why they have their sail up either. But anyway,
they're already knocked out.
We don't have
they hit their head on the mast and they're laid out on the deck.
There's nobody on this boat. They're in the water somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I hope you understand what I mean. I would like to bring this edge up to here, and then have the boat over here. If you can kind of get the idea, the lightning bolt over here, and then the rest of this be water.
Yeah.
So if I were to do this in a larger format, that's what I would do. That's what I would change. It would be a compositional change, as well as breaking up, all the little things happening there with the waves.
Now, is the background, is that purple? Is that a purplish gray?
It is kind of a purplish gray.
Okay, that's how I know that all of our screens are calibrated a little differently, and I saw it as purple. And purple and green just look so great together every single time. But the greens that you used, they don't feel pretty up against the purple. They feel ominous.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that is right on.
Yeah. If you look at the sky, there's some lighter blues, some darker blues, some purples in there, but I really like the strokes that are going this way because it kind of makes it feel like rain. It kind of makes it feel like it's raining. All right, you got anything else to say about this one?
I just think it's a stellar piece. So good job on this one.
Yep. Yeah, and it could be yours. The bidding has started, and people, I just checked, Ashley, and people are bidding on the artwork.
Oh, fantastic. That's fantastic.
QR code on your screen there will take you to the bidding website, and this can be yours. As far as size goes, and remind me to say the sizes because I haven't been doing a good job of conveying that information. This one is 8 inches by 6 inches, so a decent size there.
All right, so get your rulers out and figure out where would be a good place to hang this one.
Right. All right. The next drawing was Ashley's Subway here.
All right. Subways of Your Mind was the song of inspiration for this one. And this piece clearly is all about perspective, 1-point perspective. We don't do a lot with, we talk about perspective and things being in perspective or leaning towards what would be a vanishing point. But in this case, the vanishing point is in the image, and we were able to use it to at least to begin this drawing. So that was really just the entire purpose of me selecting this image, was to give us a chance to talk about 1-point perspective and how sometimes horizontal edges that are moving toward or away from us in space seem to converge at the same point in space. So besides talking a lot about and using this as a teaching tool to talk about perspective, this piece has tons of repetition in it, from the pattern on the ceiling and the lights that hang down from the ceiling and the train itself. And, repetition kind of creates a tempo or a rhythm in an artwork. And this one's pretty fast because of the pieces that are repeated are very close together. And then you have a little bit of a slower passage where your eyes slow down a little bit on our people. And, of course, all of the lines that move towards a vanishing point are leading us towards the darker figure, the figure that's sort of in a silhouette or shadow. But that's not really our focal point. So a little bit different here. The focal point has been moved away from the vanishing point, and to me it's the figure that has the higher contrast, a lighter top and a darker bottom. So hopefully there's enough contrast in that figure that's closer that is still the focal point for you guys as well. Incidentally, that figure is also where 2 of the thirds would meet, a horizontal third and a vertical third. So again, this one was cropped, and that was the intention.
All right, so a few things here. First, we'll do the thirds, so we can see that. So if I were to divide this into thirds, so you can kind of see what Ashley was talking about. And I'm freehanding this with my grid drawing, so don't hate on me too much.
Yeah, pretty close.
That's kind of the thirds.
That's pretty close.
Kind of. So this is what Ashley's talking about. This lower horizontal line, this vertical line, they're intersecting right there. These locations, by the way, are always great places to put focal points. If you want to follow the rule of thirds, which is based on the golden mean or golden proportion, which is way more complex with math. Mm-hmm. The rule of thirds is kind of a simplified version of that. It's used a lot in photography and film. And once you know the rule of thirds, you start seeing it everywhere in film, especially because we all watch screens all the time.
It helps our eyes move around. The focal point's right in the middle, then our eyes get stuck in the middle, like a bullseye effect, and everything else seems to become absolutely not important.
There's a lot of great things happening in this piece compositionally. One of those things is rhythm. And, when we think of rhythm, we think of auditory rhythm. We listen to music and it has a rhythm. And in a piece of artwork, rhythm is created the same way. In music, we usually get the rhythm from a repetition of notes, usually played by the bass guitarist or the rhythm guitarist, and the drummer, obviously.
Of course.
And it's a repeated pattern. In a piece of art, we create rhythm through repetition. So there's a lot of rhythm in this piece. These lights up here create a wonderful rhythm. And of course, they're all in perspective as well. The architectural elements of the ceiling also create that rhythm. The windows on the subway train, also create rhythm. These horizontal marks, I mean, it's all through this piece. This piece is all about rhythm here. And you can really see how that works to create a harmonious and successful piece of artwork. So, look for elements and principles of art. Rhythm is a principle of art. Look for those things and see how you can add them to your artworks. And now it'll make your compositions and your artworks better, obviously. A lot of times we just sit down, draw, or paint whatever we like to look at. But look for opportunities to pull in principles of art to make your artworks stronger. Another thing that's really cool about this piece is we have two figures, but one is mostly dark and one is mostly light. So there's a lot of contrast between these two figures. Ashley kind of mentioned that this one was the focal point, but the dark one also demands a lot of attention. And I find myself going back and forth.
The dark
between
one's crucial for the balance of this piece.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so close to the edge and it's small, but it balances the large train on the other side. It's able to do that because of its proximity to the edge.
Right. So, excellent point there. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the watercolor birds about getting too close to the edge of the picture plane. And if you're a member and you watch the Members Minute critiques, I talk about placing things close to the edge of the picture plane quite a bit. And usually I talk about that in a negative way. I talk about it and say this is creating negative tension, which is pulling the viewer's eye to this side. But just like with a teeter-totter, if we have a bunch of visual elements on one side of it, we have to balance it out with something on the other side. So it's visually balanced. With a teeter-totter, it's actual physical weight. But the same thing's true for a piece of artwork. So this train has a lot of visual weight. And like Ashley said, by putting that close to the edge of the picture plane, that's pulling weight over that way. So this element doesn't have to be large. It just has to be close to the edge, and it helps that it's a dark figure, so there's high contrast there. So really great piece. This one is really impactful without having details. It feels like we can see and understand the details without those details actually being there. And that's a testament to the range of value you got, and also the way you handled those really complex architectural elements on the ceiling.
I tell you what,
with charcoal.
It was a little tough to get through in 45 minutes. I was sweating bullets once I got started. There's just so much pattern.
Yeah.
And I love pattern.
Yeah.
So I can't help but paint myself into a corner and include heavily patterned imagery, sometimes even here on Gettin Sketchy.
Well, it's a fantastic piece, and I think you did a great job. And I just looked at the clock, and we need to go.
Well, we got to pick it up a little bit.
We got to go a little faster.
All right.
The size of this piece is 6.5 inches by 5 inches, and it's a charcoal drawing. Okay, so the next piece was mine, and the song was "Walking on the Moon" by The Police, and one of my favorite songs. Anyway, this is obviously not the moon because the moon is not orange, but that was my song. This is a combination of pastels, pastel pencils, and gouache. I really, really enjoyed this piece. Obviously, if you watch this episode, I did not finish it in 45 minutes. I continued to work beyond that. Again, another figure, but there's a little less to have to worry about with the proportions here because the person's wearing a suit. This definitely was one of my favorites this season. I really enjoyed doing the splattering of the gouache in the background to create the illusion of stars. I think that is working really well. I also really liked this area right here, creating the reflection in the glass thing on the front of this guy's head. This is just a really cool, kind of trippy image. Kind of looks like it should be as part of an album insert.
Looks like an album cover.
And the earth up there was also pretty fun to draw as well. This is one that kind of grew on me as the days went by, and I had it here in the studio and looked at it as I walked by. When I first initially created it, I just kind of felt rushed and was glad that I was able to do it within an hour. But now that I've looked at it and had some time to look at it, I really, really like this piece. I'm going to actually be sad to see this one leave the studio with whoever purchases it, because I really enjoyed it. I would have, in retrospect, added a little bit more of this blue right there on the shoulder to more of the image. I would like to see more of it on this, more of it right here, and maybe a hint of it down here, even though that wasn't what was happening in the reference photo, just to make it a little bit consistent, because right now that arm feels like the only place where that blue is showing up, and that blue is so different from the other blues in the scene. It's a nice cooling highlight. It's a highlight, but it still feels cool. And I really like the reflections of light coming up from underneath the Spaceman, although it doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense with a consistent light source. The strong light source is coming from the right, and there is a light source emanating from below. So that would indicate that there's either a strong light source above, or there's light coming from over here that's very strong and catching the light going up here. So there's definitely two light sources in the scene. But anyway, I really enjoyed this one. I like the positioning of the Spaceman, not directly in the center, and also like what's kind of happening there with the Earth, the Spaceman, and the ground planet that this one's on. All right, Ashley.
Nice piece. I like how we both had a space-themed piece this season, and we both chose the same color scheme when we were representing the space-themed pieces. I thought that was coincidentally interesting. So one thing, I know you pointed out the helmet and that you really like that passage. I really like the way you handled the pack on the back.
Oh yeah.
There's that really bright orange on the bottom, but even on the side in shadow, it's kind of an orangish gray in there. I can just feel a little bit of that color in there on the side also. So it's subtle. That color is very dull, but it's still a color, and it works on the pack. So I think that's the intensity of those two panels together and their color, I think works really well.
All right. Well, I'd love to talk more about this one, but I feel like we're going to need to move on.
I know,
here.
we got to keep it.
All right. The next one was Ashley's drawing of a hare.
So I said this was inspired by a Jefferson Airplane song, but it was really inspired by the little rabbits in my backyard that have been living in the woods below my backyard and also in my backyard, probably because of the garden, over the summer. And I'm sad to report that one of those little bunnies has met its end. So it was a tough day. A few days ago, I got up early. I've been getting up early, and usually I feed my cat before I let him outside. But this particular morning, he was really anxious to go outside. And so I went ahead and let him out, and he didn't have a full belly, and he found one of our rabbits, and he ate half.
Oh my gosh, your cat murdered the rabbit?
Well, it was his breakfast. He did eat the rabbit because he hadn't had his own, store purchased food. So it would be worse if he just killed the rabbit and left it. But it was a meal.
So it's your fault.
I have a lot. Yeah, I blame myself. I really do. So I don't let my cat out anymore until his belly is full, because we have rabbits, we've got bird feeders, and typically he just leaves them alone. But he's usually only outside after he eats, and then the reason he comes back in is to eat some more. He eats all day long. So it's a little bit my fault. So this is a tribute piece now to the rabbit that used to be. And so let's go ahead and talk about the piece a little bit. It's a little flat. It feels like the plants are right next to the rabbit. There's not really a lot of overlapping there. And in the background, it has a pretty consistent value. I made the background darker than the reference by just a little bit, so the light on the rabbit felt stronger. So I don't have any problem with that, but the whole piece feels a little bit flat, like the rabbit and the plants are on a stage. I also used bead paper. Or no, I'm sorry.
It's stipple paper.
Stipple paper by the Bee Company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I chose that paper in hopes that it would contribute to the texture in the piece. But I'm afraid that the texture of the paper, in my estimation, dominated the texture that would be that I was trying to create on the rabbit. So I'm a little not entirely happy with that. I now wish I had chosen a smoother paper so that I could really have played up that simulated texture with mark making and not having tried to rely on the paper to do so. So that's my critique of this piece. The body is turned at a 3/4 angle, but the head not so much, and so I think that contributes to a little bit of that flat feeling. So, those are my feelings on this one after a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I do think that having a little bit more depth in the background would definitely help. I mean, even just some indication of maybe some grass that kind of disappears.
Right,
in the
something
distance.
going behind the rabbit. That's what's missing.
But I will say, having worked on this type of paper, it feels like larger drawings are better for that paper. Although with it smaller, you can really see the texture and really get an idea of what the texture is like. Because, I mean, you can really see it in the background in portions of the bunny as well.
I want to do another drawing on this paper of a subject matter that has a very smooth surface. You know? And see just see what my experience is with a I guess man-made objects. You know, I like to draw pills and pill bottles and staplers and rolls of tape, and so I'm going to try something like that on this paper and see if I have a better experience.
Yeah, I think the big issue I have with this is like you said, that kind of lack of depth. I think you did a good job rendering the plant and the hair, but yeah, it kind of looks like it's a little bit flat there.
Yeah, and the grass, is almost straight across. The plants are straight up and down, so it's just too static.
But in fairness, the reference that you're working from had the lens was everything close was in focus, and everything far away was blurred out, and it was kind of translating as just a gray value, if I remember right.
I think it was a little bit splotchier, and so maybe that would have worked if I just had some more soft. But distinct shapes in the background. Might have felt like there was more overlapping.
But this image has great surface texture. I mean, the texture of the fur of the bunny, the texture of the plants and the grass is great. And it's complemented by the texture of the paper. The texture of the paper is making the image more interesting. If this was just done on white, flat paper and done the same way, it wouldn't be as dynamic as it is. So the paper does play a role in adding to the value of this piece. Full range of value, got the darkest darks, lightest lights, a broad range of value. Proportions are correct. So there's a lot of positive things about this piece.
Now, the type of hair this is, when my son looked at the drawing, he told me the eye is in the wrong place.
Oh, really?
And then I showed him the reference, and it's in exactly the right place.
Yeah.
So I think he was just, it's a hare, not a bunny.
Right.
And I think that, his lack of familiarity with this particular species of hare led him to believe that the eye was a little bit high. So, maybe it could have been cuter if it was a different type of a bunny.
Yeah, maybe need to be cuter. Samuel says, you don't need to split hairs, Matt, Ashley. I still like the joke. That's pretty good. All right. All right, so again, this one is available. You can click on the QR code to take you to the auction. This is 5.5 inches by 4.5 inches.
Did you read Catherine's comment?
No.
It says rip hair. Hair today, gone tomorrow.
Hair today, gone tomorrow. Very
yes.
Good. All right, the last piece of the season was Up to Me, and this was The Falling Man, and the song was Free Falling by Tom Petty.
Figure drawing.
Another figure drawing, yes, in a very easy position to draw. Anyway, this is done with graphite pencils. I did use the the Mars Lumograph black pencils. Maybe they're black pencils. I don't know. I think they're a combination of carbon and graphite. Anyway, they make some really nice darks. This one I was pressed for time again. I spent the bulk of the episode drawing out the proportions and then added the values relatively quickly. As far as this drawing goes, this area right here is my favorite. I really like the way the boots are turned, the legs turned, and all that feels right through here. And that can be a little bit tricky to get. Not only do you have to get the proportions correct with the rest of the body, but also our bodies turn and twist in different ways. And if the angles aren't right, things can feel really off. So I knew that was a gamble in that area, but it played out pretty well. And I like the texture that I was able to get on the pants, still creating the illusion of a highlight while creating the impression of some wrinkles and things. I love the plaid on the shirts. I think I mentioned this in the live broadcast of this episode. Don't be afraid of patterns on clothing. Patterns can help create the illusion of form and help give your subject and surface volume. Doesn't have to be perfect or exactly right either. That pattern's not exactly right, but it still translates pretty well as this guy wearing a plaid shirt. Another tricky area is the face, since pretty much the entire face is covered except for the eye, the brow, and the forehead. And that can be very tricky because our tendency is to put the eyes up here. And even though we wouldn't see them, we kind of just have a natural tendency. The eyes are at the top of the head. They're not. They're actually in the middle of the head. So I like the position of the eyes. And the gradation of value from dark to light at the top. I did that with powdered graphite. I really like the way that turned out. Really like the way this piece feels. If I were to do this piece on a larger scale, I would have my composition be really, really long. And then have the guy falling way down here or way up here.
Kind of like the boat.
One or the other.
You would stretch
like
out
the
some
boat.
of that space.
Yes, I would stretch it out, make it really dramatic, really play out a vertical composition. This is a vertical composition, but I would really stretch it out if I was creating this as a finished piece. I think it would be really cool on a long sheet of paper and then having the guy falling either at the very bottom or at the top. Probably the bottom would have more impact, but who knows? Maybe the top would. Anyway, one of my favorites from the season for sure. And just because of the time, that's all I'm going to say about it. Ashley, do you have anything else on that?
I just think that, in the original reference, the background was smoother, and yours is a little bit irregular, and I think that adds to the movement of his feeling of him falling. And like I'd mentioned in the original show where you were drawing this, it's open to interpretation. It feels like he's falling through the air, but it also kind of feels like he's slowly falling down through water. Sometimes underwater it's very light at the top when you look up and you're underwater, so it has that feeling too. So I just want to get in there and draw some bubbles. Just a few little bubbles coming off of the tips of his fingers and toes.
Well, you could do if you had to do a series of artworks for a gallery for a show, you could have guy floating in water, coming down, guy falling
whole series
in the air. You could do a bunch of different things with this kind of theme. Anyway,
it's time for you guys to vote, I guess.
Yeah, this piece is 9.35 inches by 6 inches. Okay, so it's done on Stonehenge Polar White drawing paper. So, all right, so we've had a look at all of them now, and it is time for us to choose our favorites. I'm going to slide this back a little bit, and I'm going to choose my favorite from Ashley's and choose my favorite from mine, and Ashley will do the same. Do you want to go first,
Sure.
or do you want? Okay,
Sure.
go first.
I'll go
all right.
ahead, and I'm just reading a little bit of the votes that are coming in. We'll read some of those out of the chat. But for my piece, my favorite piece, I think, was my first piece of the season. I think it was the wolf.
The wolf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hungry like the wolf.
Yeah, I've had that piece in my, kind of on a table behind my drawing board while I work, and I've been looking at it over the last couple months, and I like it more and more as I pass by it. So I'm going to stick with the wolf for my favorite.
Okay.
Of my own pieces. And
interesting.
Then my favorite piece that Matt did. Matt, you had some real bangers this season.
I think we both did.
Yeah.
I think you had
It's
great
hard to
ones too.
choose.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to go with your boat.
The boat.
Yeah. I think
The boat
so.
in the storm is Ashley's favorite.
I really like the Spaceman also.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Spaceman.
it's been here in the studio, and I've been looking at it each week, and it has also grown on me. But I think I'm going to stick with the boat. And I don't know if it's this the color scheme. I just love the variety in the water and the action in the entire piece. The lightning bolt is so subtle. When you put the piece up tonight, I didn't even notice it again for the first 5 minutes. And then when you see it, it's a little bit exciting.
Yeah.
A little bit like a lightning strike.
All right. Well,
So
thanks.
those are my two pieces.
Well-
Both of our pieces dominated by green with quite a bit of white.
Well, let's see. We've got a super chat, and it looks like it's from Hydra
Meeks.
Meeks.
Oh, thank you so much.
And the comment is, I am also an artist, teacher, and support charities too. You both exemplify that art is like life. If you get your values right, everything else is easy.
Well, I
Very
love that.
good. My votes tied on Boat on the Storm and the Rocket. Here's some love for you, for all you do. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it, Hydra. And we appreciate you supporting the channel and for your comment. Thank you so much. I'm not going to do the cheer tonight because it's just going to take away from
I'm already
the
down in the
moments.
corner. There we go. There we go. That was a live
Actually,
cheer.
that's what it looks like to us because we don't hear the sound.
Right, there's no
So
sound.
it just looks like mouths opening and closing. All right. Let's see. My favorite from the season. This is very difficult because I really like the boat. And I really like the Spaceman. It's going to be the Falling Man.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. The Falling Man's my favorite. And the reason why it's my favorite is because, you know, these images look a certain way when you see them digitally, but they look a different way when you see them in person. And the Falling Man drawing in person, I feel like looks sharper and is more impactful in person. It's a larger drawing than the Spaceman. The Spaceman's
True.
probably I don't know. I like the boat. I like the space. The boat was definitely the most fun to do. But I think my favorite has got to be the free falling one, just because the way it looks in person.
Yeah, it's a good point, Matt. That's why it's important for all of us to get out and support our museums and see artwork in person, because sometimes they feel completely different.
And my favorite of yours from this season, this is a difficult one. I really like the wolf. I think the wolf is awesome. I like the pills, and I like the rocket,
They're also different from each other.
and
too,
I like
if you're
the
using music.
subway. Which one is it going to be? Rocket or subway? I got to go with the subway.
All right.
I got to go with the subway. I think the subway has so many principles of art, like I mentioned,
It's a
that
great
are
keeping
working
piece.
for it, that it is compositionally strong. You were able to get a lot of detail with a medium that doesn't really encourage detail in a short period of time. Charcoal will give you full range of value in a short period of time, but it's difficult to get detail. But that detail is insinuated. I love the reflections. We didn't talk about this, but I love the reflections on the surface of the windows and the shadow. Well, I guess it's a reflection of the
it's
figures
reflection, right.
on the surface too. So
you
a lot
can
of great
feel
things
that
about this
surface.
piece.
It's like a dull shine.
Yeah.
It
So
comes across.
I think we had great pieces this season. I really do.
Yeah, it was and we've had some really good seasons, but season 14 is definitely up there with the best of them.
All right. So just to remind you guys, we are selling these artworks to you guys wherever you are as an auction. The auction will end in a week. So if you're watching the recorded version of this, you can still bid on the artworks. There is a link in the description below to the artworks. Plus, I had that QR code up, and I don't have it here to put on the screen right now. So poor planning on my part. But there's a link in the description below that will take you to the auction site. And someone had asked if I would talk about the organization that we are donating this money to. There's the QR code. It's back up
There we go.
This is the Enrichment Center of Winston-Salem. And what they do is they provide all kinds of stuff, support, experiences for adults who have developmental or intellectual disabilities. Very special and dear to mine and my wife's heart. As I mentioned before, the palette that's behind me was made by folks at the Enrichment Center, and I bought it at an auction. I've bought several artworks from them. It's just fantastic people, working with fantastic people, and it's all centered around the arts. They draw, they paint, they dance, they do plays, they have all kinds of activities. It's a wonderful organization, and like I said, very near and dear to my heart personally, and I know a few of you out there too who this organization would also be near and dear to your heart as well. So anyway, if you want to bid, I would encourage you to do so. That QR code is on your screen right now, and also in the description below. I will be donating all of the proceeds that we make from selling our artworks, minus the auction fees and minus the shipping costs and everything that I'll have to pay to send the artworks out to you guys. So again, I would encourage you to bid on the artworks. We've never done this before. I've never sold a piece of artwork from Gettin Sketchy. I thought it would be good to do that because, what we do with these artworks is we really just take them and put them in drawers when we're done. And we have quite a collection, but I think this is a good idea. So we would love for you to support. Also, if you want to just donate to that organization, we encourage you to do that. If you just Google Enrichment Center of Winston-Salem, they have a donation page, and any little bit will help. So anyway, thanks again so much for watching our wrap-up show and watching season 14. If you missed any of the shows, any of the episodes from this season, they're all right here on YouTube, and in a few days I'll have them posted on the blog over at thevirtualinstructor.com. Ashley, do you have anything else to say to folks?
I only have to say that I will be painting live in a live class in about 8 minutes. So if you're going to be in that class, maybe a few minutes late getting started.
Yeah.
I hope you guys have a great break between this season and next season. It won't be a long break, and when we come back, we'll be refreshed and ready to spend more time talking about art with you guys.
Wow. This was an hour and a half show.
I know. It was movie length.
We will definitely be late on the live lesson to follow because we've got a lot of shit to do.
In this show, but it's important to do.
Right. And there's a lot to do. Boy, I am stressed out all of a sudden. All right. So we'll see those of you who are members in just a few minutes over at thevirtualinstructor.com. For the rest of you, why not join our community over there? It's a bunch of friendly people. I'm telling you what, it's a wonderful thing.
Let's keep this train on the tracks, right?
Yeah.
Let's keep this party going.
All right, guys. Some folks have asked when we'll start the next season. Doing these Gettin Sketchy episodes is mentally exhausting. I know it's hard to understand that, but when you are drawing and painting and trying to teach at the same time live while people are watching you, it is nerve-wracking, and so we have to take breaks. So we'll take a break for a few weeks, and then we'll come back. And if you want to make sure that you're notified when we come back, first of all, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you've clicked on the notification bell, but also get on our mailing list. There's a link in the description below for the free course videos and ebooks. If you're not already on that list, I will send out an email when we start Gettin Sketchy season 15 in several weeks from now. So have a great night, everybody. For those of you that we'll see in just a few minutes, we'll see you in just a few minutes. And for the rest of you, we'll see you soon. With that, we're going to go ahead and sign out for this evening and bid a farewell to season 14. Good night, everybody.